So I wanted a soaring, beautiful picture because I'm going to get into a little bit of the recent government history, which it may be a little tedious, but I'll try to, I think it's fascinating. But I want to say that the real history here is what Greg laid out, and you're going to hear from Jeremy Five Crows later. The history of this site for our indigenous people is really what this is about, and we're doing our best to honor that and convert this site into the really special place that it can be. My personal discovery of the falls started here. There was a local attorney, he's still around, named Jack Hammond, who had this idea, it was a little crazy, to build a tram from here down to the falls, bypassing the paper mill, which has gone straight out to the platform that's there, and he gathered about 30 leaders. At the time I was Metro's Parks and Nature Director, a bunch of elected officials, we all went, and it was the first time I'd ever really been out to the falls, and this is in about 2005 maybe, and it was really profound. You know, I live right across the river, and I'd driven over the bridge a million times and never really thought about these falls, and it had an incredible impression on me. So fast forward to 2011, I get up one day back when they used to deliver this thing called a newspaper to your house. It was really cool. It had articles, you didn't have to open your computer. And there on the front page was this pretty sad story about the sudden closing of the Blue Heron paper mill here, where people showed up for work like they did every day, and sometimes they were second or third generation, even mill workers, who were told at 9 a.m. that they no longer had a job and the mill was closed, and they had no forewarning of that. And I went into work that day, and I went immediately into my attorney, who's still working on this at Metro, Hope Whitney, and I went into her office and I said, Hope, I had this really crazy thought. Metro had a bond measure. We had natural area funds for acquisition. We had, I don't know, $80 million in the bank. I said, Hope, could we buy the Blue Heron paper mill? And I said, the waterfall is incredible. There's not a more important natural resource in the region. Yeah, I know there's 57 buildings and 900,000 square feet of industrial space and concrete that you could line up from here to downtown, but why can't we protect this site like we have other places? And that got the wheels turning that day in the office. And then the very next day, Doug Neely, who was the mayor of Oregon City at the time, and he's been an incredible champion of this, and incredible inspirational guy, and he looks like John McLaughlin, which is kind of cool. And Doug walks into my office. He was at Metro for another meeting, and he just kind of slumps down in a chair in my office. He goes, hey, Jim, I got this crazy idea. Could you guys buy the Blue Heron site? And so we started to co-conspire. And then what happened was Metro went into a very quiet period of what I would call due diligence. And we were authorized by the council to investigate, not so much should Metro buy the site, but could it be protected? And we did level 2 environmental investigations, and we did various investigations of the site, and we hired Shields Oblitz, you're gonna hear from Rick Gustafson later, to investigate the site because frankly, it's overwhelming. And those of you who went on the tour today who had not been there probably got a little bit of a sense of that. But we began to take it apart a little bit piece by piece. And in particular answered the questions on the environmental liability, which everybody assumed was an absolute barrier to anything happening there ever again. And that really was not the case for reasons I won't get into, but flooding had something to do with it. I'll just give you a hint. And then we began to work with Oregon City, and Tony Kunkel, who is now the city manager, best city manager in the region in my opinion, was community director at the time, and we're very lucky to have him on this. And we worked with Christine and the staff of Oregon City to just sort of quietly see what could be done here. And Tony even officed at Metro every Friday for probably 2 years. And we were working that closely together, which was really remarkable. And then the partnership formed that Carol mentioned that has held to this day, Metro, the city, Clackamas County, and the state of Oregon. But I give those, and now that I'm no longer there, it's easy for me to say this, I've been gone for a while, it was really a leap of faith. When you went out to that site and started to think that the public agencies could create this transformation, in this era of government cynicism and lack of belief in something, this was not an easy, obvious thing with a former paper mill and the 900,000 square feet of industrial space, and frankly, a lot of built chaos out there. But the four agencies really believed, and there was great political leadership, and we came up with the four values that Carol outlined. And intentionally, they were not prioritized. There was a robust discussion about that. And the four values of public access, healthy habitat, historical and cultural interpretation, and economic redevelopment, I always argued that they were mutually supportive. And I would strongly argue that economic development in particular doesn't happen without the other three. I think the other three are the catalyst to the economic development. If there was economic development on its own, the site would have never been in bankruptcy, Blue Heron would have sold it, and it wouldn't have been unsold for 5 years. The real estate market works on its own, and it didn't here. And so I think that tells us a little bit about that. And then there was an original vision plan that Walker Macy did, I'm looking at my time here, that really began to form what this site could be. And that was a high concept vision that was really well received by the agencies and the public. And then a really critical thing happened. Governor John Kitzhaber at the time was approached. His chief of staff, Curtis Robinhold, who's now the executive director of the Port of Portland, came out here, saw the site. We took him out for a beer at the Verdict. We walked over there. And he said, yeah, we can help you, Jim. How much money do you want? Well, I wasn't really prepared for that question, so I thought of the biggest number I could think of that wouldn't cause him to leave the bar, but was ambitious. So I just said, $5 million. And he goes, yeah, we can do that. Just like that. Of course, I thought I left money on the table when I left, but maybe not. And so the state very quickly committed $5 million. And then we had to run it through the state legislature, and we're meeting the leaders. And a bunch of us went to see Carlotta Collette, who was the Metro Councilor at the time, and I were in Senator Courtney's office, and we had this big song and dance, and photos and everything, and he stopped me about 30 seconds in. He goes, hey, you had me at Willamette River. And then because he, it turns out, lives on the Willamette in Eugene, we showed him a picture of the falls, like, you had me at Willamette River, let's do this thing. And everybody just started to come on board. And that has really continued to this day, that spirit of can-do. And there's this sense of place that inspires us so much. And then the site went into bankruptcy, the property was sold. Metro in the end declined to buy it. It was bought by a private developer, but we immediately began to negotiate with that developer and also PGE, and who I give a lot of credit to, and you're going to hear from Dave Robertson later. We wanted to get that public access secured, and so we were able to negotiate easements from both the private landowner who bought the site and PGE at no cost to the public. And I really want to underscore how remarkable that was, because we had already announced our ambitions, had a big master plan, said it was going to be world-class, said it was going to cost tens of millions of dollars. And in my experience, once you say that publicly, if somebody's hanging onto their real estate rights, they generally don't give them away. They generally are going to leverage that and it'll pay off. And both of them, and PGE had a very civic-minded purpose here that I really commend them for. And the fact that those easements were donated to the public is a really big deal, and is really the driver for this. And the landowner easement was 250 feet. So for you designers in the room, that's a broad easement. You know, the average walkway is more like 12 feet in the region. So the 250-foot easement was a big deal and a huge win for the public. And then in what I think of as really the key to this whole thing that gets us to today's meeting around the future construction, one of the principles that, and Mayor Neely from the beginning had said, this needs to be world-class. We got to think big. We got a once in 100-year, 200-year opportunity here. And when the Snowhetta firm was hired, you're going to hear from Michelle later and the team that they put together with Carol Reed. We then had a world-class architect visionary here in Michelle Long-Barris here. And there were public meetings, and Carol helped organize. We had 600-700 people showing up at open houses. But rather than them asking, oh, what materials should we use, and should we go around 10 feet here, they said, how do you want this project to make you feel? And they had pictures of various things up on the walls, and people would put post-its. There'd be fish, or there'd be rainbows, or I don't remember. It was all a little abstract and really soaring inspiration, and the public loved it. And there was when they rolled out the design, there was a big meeting down at the OMSI Museum. We had, I don't know how many people there that day? A lot, 1,000, 600, 800, I don't know. Michelle finished her presentation, people applauded. I've gone to a lot of public meetings in my life, and rarely does the public agencies roll out their vision for the property and everybody gives you a standing ovation when you say you want to spend $50 million. That's not always how it goes. But it was really, the public just really got it and fell in love with the vision and the potential here, and really that notion of a world-class placemaking exercise. So as you move forward, I just want to really, the city, state, and county have all been great. Now that I've been gone for 4 years, I really want to commend Metro's leadership throughout this. It's been a long, tough grind. Metro invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in due diligence and consultant fees here, and it's really, with a lot of help from other partners, but really carried a big load here. And Carlotta Collette was the Metro Councilor for this district, and did a great job, but we are really fortunate that we have a new councilor who you're going to hear from later, Christine Lewis, who was my Metro Councilor, which I'm proud to say, who has stepped in immediately. We've lost, political leadership is just critical in a tough project like this, and it's been seamless. Christine met with me early on before she was even in office. I laid out a lot of this history to her. She's already become an effective, amazing champion. So the project hasn't missed a beat, and Metro is just all in for this, and with the great staff, and you're going to hear from Brian as well. And they've got an opportunity coming up, the 2006 bond measure that had paid for all this due diligence. That's now wound down. Metro's talking about going back to the voters and is eager to use that new bond measure as an opportunity to accelerate the funding here beyond the phase 1 and into phase 2, and anything that the Nature Conservancy or I personally can do to help that, we're here to help. So let me leave you with this. As you're going to hear a lot of details about design and technical stuff, but what's amazing to me is when you look out there and boil it down, you really think about the elements of Willamette Falls. It's really just three of the simplest things there are in the world. It's just water, rock, and gravity. That's all it is. And yet, with those three simple elements, here's this place that since time immemorial, and Greg just presented an incredible picture of that for us briefly, and it can really inspire. I think it could be the defining project in this region, frankly. And this place nourishes us, it inspires us, and I think it has the potential to bring us together, which we as a people in this region, this country, maybe need more than ever. And I don't know of another opportunity that has already galvanized this support. So to you consultants and experts in the room who are going to help do this, a lot of people stand ready to help you, and thanks for being here today, and just go do great things. Thank you very much.